Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the National Civic League's April webinar, Integrating Immigrants into Civic Life. My name is Rebecca Trout, and I am the Program Director of the National Civic League, of the All-America City Awards here at the National Civic League. And we are a 125-year-old nonprofit. We aim to advance civic engagement to create more equitable and thriving communities. The All-America City Awards is our flagship program. It began in 1949 to recognize and celebrate outstanding examples of civic engagement practices in local communities. And while the All-America City Award celebrates and lifts up those wonderful communities, we really use this monthly webinar series to share best practices from those communities, as well as from programs and tools that might help with communities' engagement efforts. So before we dive into today's webinar, I just wanted to give you a quick shout out for the 2021 All-America City Awards. Our finalists were selected and announced last month. They hail from 15 different states, representing populations from just under 10,000 to over 1 million. We're really excited about this group of finalists. They have submitted projects and applications surrounding the theme of building equity and resilience in their communities. They are preparing diligently for our All-America City Awards event, which is coming up in June, and they will present their projects and their community's efforts to a jury for a chance to be named one of this year's All-America Cities. Of course, that event will also include speakers, workshops, roundtables, and a lot of other fun activities. So encourage everyone who would be interested in learning more about civic engagement and some of the great work going around in communities to join us for that as well. But today we are happy to be focusing on our webinar about integrating immigrants into civic life. We have 3 excellent presenters and a few guest speakers as well. I'm thrilled to be joined by Melissa Bertolo, Certified Welcoming Director with Welcoming America, who helped me find our other 2 wonderful speakers, Sabine Nassim, Director, Office of Globalization for Louisville Forward, as well as Maureen Smith, who's the Program Manager for Immigrant Leadership Institute at the Welcoming Center. So before I hand it off to them, I just wanted to let you all know that you'll notice you're all on mute, and we ask that you remain that way unless you're speaking to cut down on background noise. We will be offering a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, and you'll be able to either put your questions in the chat box or use the raise hand feature on Zoom. We are also recording today's webinar, and you'll be sent a copy of that recording as well as a copy of the slides at the conclusion of the webinar. And that is all I have for you today. I'm happy to hand it over to Melissa. Melissa, can you get us started?
Thank you, Rebecca and the National Civic League for hosting the webinar today and having us all here to share about work of Welcoming America and a few of our members. I am going to pull up my screen here. Sorry guys, here we go. All right. Oops. All these Zoom webinars, still can't get it right. All right, I think I got it finally. All right. So again, sorry about the delay on that, guys. So I'm Melissa Bertolo, and I'm the Certified Welcoming Director at Welcoming America. Prior to this role, I was actually the I was the Welcome Dayton Program Coordinator with the City of Dayton, and I have nearly 15 years of experience in the immigration field. A little bit about Welcoming America. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We've been around for a little over 10 years, not nearly as long as the National Civic League. But we're working to build communities that embrace immigrants and fosters opportunity for all. We host a network of more than 200 members of both local governments and community-based organizations, encompassing localities from Anchorage, Alaska, to Atlanta, Georgia, from Dayton, Ohio, to Dallas, Texas. Additionally, our growing international efforts provide an opportunity to exchange best practices between global inclusive cities. So through this network, we really work to change systems and culture by providing communities the roadmap they need to create welcoming policies and share new approaches to inclusion to create a community where everyone can thrive. So we do this in several different ways, but we really focus on harnessing the power of local communities to change the narrative on immigration and to make sure that everyone who lives in their community not only feel like they belong, but that they have the support to thrive and prosper. So we focus on connecting leaders in the local community with each other and with government and nonprofit sectors. We also really focus on building those skills and research tested methods from the field to increase capacity of local organizations in our network. And then we really focus on the changing systems and culture by helping to create policies and reinforce welcoming principles that lead to institutional change. We know that local communities have the power to shift the national conversation and are a driving force behind systems change. The welcoming standard is really important when thinking about creating these systems changes. So this is a document that has outlined the core of what it means to be a welcoming community in policies, programs, and practices. It really provides a comprehensive roadmap for places that are building more welcoming communities and fostering connections between immigrants and longtime residents. And then it sets those benchmarks for community organizations, residents, and others to hold welcoming places accountable and to inspire continued innovation. I can't access the chat feature right now, but I will put in a link to it as well as a few other links as I go throughout this after my presentation that you all can access. I would really encourage you to look at the welcoming standard and read it because it really provides some high level and detailed information around what does it mean to be a welcoming community, and it really sets those indicators and benchmarks for measuring that. But for right now, I'll just give you some of those high-level examples. So for government leadership, we're really looking at how does the local government implement systems and programs that strengthen community efforts and embed inclusion within government agencies. And equitable access, clearly looking at ensuring that opportunities and services are available to all residents. Civic engagement, what we're here for today, ensuring that newcomers can fully participate in civic life by increasing access to leadership and democratic spaces. Education, ensuring that all students have the support they need to succeed in school and the education that they need to succeed in the workforce. Connected communities, building connections between newcomers and longer-term residents to strengthen relationships and communicating shared values. Economic development, harnessing the full potential of all residents. Economic development systems are prepared to leverage new and existing talent. And then finally, safe communities, fostering trust and building relationships between residents, including newcomers and local law enforcement and other safety agencies. So I think you can see it's a really holistic aspect of it. Obviously, I'll be talking a little bit more about some of our civic engagement work today. But I also want to highlight the fact that the welcoming standard is also the backbone to a program that we have that's called Certified Welcoming, which is a formal designation for city and county governments that have created policies and programs reflecting their values and commitment to immigrant inclusion. So you can think of like a fair trade or LEED certification. Certified Welcoming is similar in that it's a very rigorous process. Local governments are held up to the welcoming standard and assessed for compliance with that. And the assessment, I think, really helps to create more accountability for the work that's being done by local government. And it provides, again, this opportunity to create stronger communities and to really ensure that the work is continuing to be moved forward. So local communities that receive this designation are able to distinguish their efforts, build a competitive advantage, and gain access to opportunities to share their welcoming practices locally, nationally, regionally, and globally. And that's really our goal at Welcoming America, to help communities meet the welcoming standard, whether or not they decide to seek certified welcoming. But we recognize that this work can really take a long time, and it's more important to us that this work be done right than quickly. So I just want to share a little bit about the return on investment for welcoming communities, that we really see these communities as having a competitive edge, and that they're more resilient. Obviously, by connecting new residents with their neighbors and to local governments, we're creating a climate where immigrants and refugees can become deeply involved in their community and invest their time and money, and hopes and dreams can become reality. And I think that we all benefit when there's an intentional effort to ensure that residents are engaged at their fullest potential, because when we all feel like we belong, we're more likely to participate. So welcoming and belonging is really important, but just because you're saying that you're welcoming doesn't necessarily make it so. And thinking practically and specifically around this, I think is where we start to see Welcoming America's theory of change. So to dive in a little bit around increasing civic participation with immigrant communities, one of the points that I think is really important for us to all consider is how it's important to continue to receive feedback from community members when developing a civic engagement program, but also not just during that development, but also during and after its implementation. And so that we're able to continue to have evaluation throughout the process, as well as at the end, to continue to improve it. Additionally, understanding how immigrant groups self-organize to support their own community members is important for any program's success. So I'll talk about natural helpers in a little bit, but understanding how people are already civically engaged in their own communities is really critical to building programs that best serve their needs. Additionally, it's nothing new. I think we all know that we need to identify and address barriers to participating in democratic spaces. And again, I think this is where getting feedback from participants or potential participants is really helpful. So whether it be something like language access, childcare, time of day, of a meeting, or observation of holidays, these practices help to improve access for all residents, not just immigrants. Additionally, I think the pandemic has really demonstrated how much more flexible we can be as far as participation, and that we need to continue to do that to ensure that everyone can continue to do that post-pandemic. Another key element for increasing civic participation is around partnership. None of this work can really be done alone, and having trusted partners at the table is key to success. Engaging with local government in particular might be new for immigrants, and depending on someone's experience with government from their home country, they might be hesitant to engage. And so trusted partners can bring people to the table and ensure authentic engagement and participation. So now I'm going to share just a few examples of some of the work that's happening around the country from our members, and then share a little bit of additional resources and support that we have before turning it over to Sabine and Maureen to talk about their specific programs. But welcoming communities as a whole, we're more likely to see having civic engagement from all residents, including new Americans. Creating environments that welcome and include new ideas, voices, and perspectives is critical for a healthy democracy. And so one of the areas that I think is important as far as an example from the field and program is really around increasing access to serving on boards, commissions, and in elected office. And this is so that we can ensure that our local government is representing the people it serves. And so examining ways people are informed about openings on boards and commissions in the appointment process is an important first step in creating equitable access to serving. Unfortunately, too often, I think organizations can get to know just one person from an ethnic or immigrant community, and then that person becomes that go-to representative, rather than the organization continuing to reach out beyond that individual. So expanding one's network and ensuring that postings about boards and commissions are accessible is critical. Another way to increase access to boards and commissions is to remove any requirements that may impede newcomers from serving on them. Greensboro in North Carolina and Fayetteville, Arkansas are two places that have removed citizenship requirements for serving on local boards and commissions. Another example specifically for this that I really love is from Austin, Minnesota, which is a very small town. They had a recommendation from their Human Rights Commission to create an honorary council member position that would serve for 3 months and would really introduce new immigrants to the elected office and city council. And so although the individual isn't allowed to vote or make any motions, they participate in all of the discussions, they receive all of the correspondence, and the program has actually led to the first former refugee and Black person to serve on the Austin City Council. Obala ran in 2020 and was just elected this past November. So I think that's, just a really wonderful example of how these types of programs can build that leadership and opportunity to engage in the boards and commissions that already exist. And then I'll share a little bit more in a bit about this, but we have also just launched a community of practice around creating more inclusive and collaborative boards, commissions, and democratic decision-making spaces. So excited about that for us in the future. Another area is around citizenship programs that I think have a really large impact on civic engagement. So research shows that naturalized citizens have an increase in pay and are more civically engaged. And so programs supporting naturalization can include pro bono legal clinics, assistance covering application fees, and preparing for the citizenship exam and interview. But many places don't just stop with the citizenship or naturalization piece. They can provide additional programming around voter engagement. So New American Pathways, which is a member of the Welcoming Network and based in Atlanta, Georgia, they have a civic engagement program that also really involves get out the vote efforts. And in 2020, these numbers are incredible to me. They reached 351,000 people via text, 5,500 people via postcards, and 31,000 multilingual informational mailers to eligible voters. And their efforts demonstrated that people who had been contacted through their means had an 86.2% turnout in the election. And I think what this really just demonstrates is that the importance of partnership, right? That if we're looking at finding those organizations that have trusted relationships and are able to reach populations that maybe we haven't traditionally engaged or are just beginning to build those relationships with, finding someone who's able to have those that depth of relationship is really important to move the work forward. And so finally, I just want to touch on leadership development. In this aspect of civic engagement, I don't want to talk too much because I know that the programs that Maureen and Sabine are going to share are really going to dive into this. But I just want to highlight that I think that there's a lot of work that's being done at the intersection of local government and community organizing. And navigating local government can be really hard, even if you're born in the United States. And so programs that aim to increase new immigrants' knowledge of city and county services and ways to engage publicly are really important resources. And that these models draw on something that I had mentioned previously, which is the self-organizing aspect that occurs in immigrant communities. And so as people receive these trainings and knowledge about services and opportunities to civically engage, they're able to share it out with other community members that may not typically be reached through traditional outreach mechanisms of local governments. And I think that we were really able to see this and the power of this, of programs during the pandemic as natural helpers have been really critical resources to reach newcomers and to share vital information about COVID. So I'm going to conclude just by sharing some additional resources and support that we have from Welcoming America that's available to the public. So when the COVID-19 pandemic hit last year, we started our Resilient Rapid Response program. And one of the components was really around inclusive emergency management. We developed a community of practice, and then we also published this toolkit establishing and maintaining inclusive emergency management with immigrant and refugee populations. And it's really, focused on how do we consider and implement inclusive practices within this field, whether that be dissemination of information, ensuring that these folks are at the table prior to an emergency, and so on. As I mentioned citizenship earlier, we also have a citizenship toolkit that we created with the New Americans campaign and the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. And it provides practices and suggestions around engaging receiving communities at the intersection of citizenship and welcoming work. And then lastly, Belonging Begins With Us is our, it's a multi-year national public service announcement campaign that was created, intended to de-escalate the political tension around immigration and transform the ways in which Americans welcome immigrants in their communities. So that's being led by Welcoming America, the Ad Council, and the Center for Inclusion and Belonging at the American Immigration Council, as well as a number of trusted public and private partnerships. And through this Belonging Begins With Us campaign is that community of practice that we just launched around bringing together a network of peers to create more inclusive committees, boards, advisory councils, and commissions in their respective communities. So it was just launched, and I'm really excited to see what we learn from that and to be able to then share out those best practices with a larger audience as well. So I can also chat these in after I'm done with the presentation, or put the links into the chat for you all to access as well. But then finally, I just want to invite you all to the Welcoming Interactive. It is next week, and it's our annual conference. It's free and virtual this year, and really hope that you all will join us for, we have 2 half-day sessions with some really amazing speakers, and look forward to seeing you there. So I think I'm gonna turn it over to Sabine now, who is the director of the Office for Globalization at Louisville Forward. And
thanks so much, Melissa, and thank you, Rebecca, for having me here. I'm going to go ahead. Looks like, do you want to continue? Yes, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as well. And here we go. So hopefully you guys can see that. Good afternoon. So I'm Sabine Nassim, the director for the Office for Globalization out of Louisville, Kentucky for Louisville Metro Government. And just to give you a quick overview of what the Office for Globalization does, we're really here to connect with immigrant communities. We are wanting to assist immigrants in engaging with Louisville community for the long term, but also increase their participation levels in all aspects of city life, including connecting their communities to local arts and cultural heritage organizations. We try to provide greater access to city and community resources and services so that immigrants and refugees can move readily through pathways for education and career development. And then we're also charged with attracting and retaining immigrant workforce and entrepreneurs. So we work on developing and implementing strategies to attract those and retain those skilled foreign-born workers and entrepreneurs. And in essence, you know, I started this off with build a globally welcoming culture. So in essence, we're hoping to accomplish those 3 prongs and ensuring we have a globally welcoming culture. So moving forward with the Louisville Welcome Academy, this is something that we started, and this is our way of engaging our immigrant and refugee community leaders or members of the community who want to become leaders in their communities. We receive feedback from those immigrant refugee community partners that said that they wanted to start something like this. They wanted to be able to engage with city government, and they wanted to learn a little bit more so that they were empowered to have those tools and resources to help their communities thrive in Louisville. So our Louisville Welcome Academy is actually modeled after the My City Academy, which is out of Nashville, and the New Americans Academy, which is out of Bowling Green. So we want to make sure we give them some kudos. They've developed some great work as well. The Louisville Welcome Academy is a leadership program to introduce immigrant and refugee leaders and connectors to the functions of city government and assist them in making networks and connections that will empower them to help their communities connect to resources and services from the city. So by assisting them, we're giving them the tools and resources so that they can get people started in businesses, get them on education pathways, help them to find affordable homes, medical care, but then also connect to the community so that they can share their culture and learn more about the city itself. The focus of the Academy is really primarily on elevating and expanding those skills of immigrant leaders in Louisville. Again, by giving them access and overview of city structure, the budget, departments, connections to decision makers. But we also include business and nonprofit organizations within the city. That way we're able to share that interaction of city government with those particular organizations. And so we hope that by the end of this, it's a 6-month program, and I'll share a little bit more details around that in a bit. But what we hope that our participants will gain is an in-depth understanding of city government services. We know that government services vary from country to country, from city to city, state to state, right? So we want them to know and have a really in-depth understanding of how Louisville city government services work. And then we want to give them greater accessibility to existing city and community resources. So what does that mean? We know language and cultural barriers, lack of awareness and lack of access are all some of those obstacles that our new Americans encounter when they come to live in our city or in any city. And so really we want to be able to share with them, this is how you can get over those barriers. And this is how you can share this information with your community members. And these are city and community resources to share. And then we also share that this is a leadership program. So we build upon those leadership skills and capacity. Leadership is viewed and interpreted in many different ways across the world. But Louisville facilitates this cross-cultural training to help communities navigate through those local systems while reducing those negative interactions due to cultural differences. So we have folks that come from all different levels. We've got in our current cohort, we have folks that have had doctorates, some have a master, some are executive directors for nonprofit organizations. We even have a university student who is learning about international affairs and public health. We have got 2 of those. So we really try to diversify who it is, what the knowledge and leadership skills they come in with so that they're also benefiting from each other. And then we hope that they, at the end of the program, that they'll become part of the larger community network. So we work with them to connect to those existing networks in the community. We want to broaden their opportunities to actively participate in leadership roles. So there is an application that goes with this. So my presentation today is really going to walk you through what that Welcome Academy is, that application, and be able to assist you if you are looking at creating something like this for your city. And so just a quick overview of the application. We always say that those that should apply are leaders or professionals that currently work or serve the international community. And this can be folks from various countries, but then also our native born. So we try to have native born in there that work with those international community partners as well, so that there is a good blend and diversity of understanding. Someone who's willing to commit to the 6 sessions of the program. So as I mentioned, it's over 6 months. It's actually really 5 and then once a graduation, but we say 6. Looking to build or start an initiative that can benefit their community. So sometimes we have folks in our community who understand that this is the need of their personal community, but they just don't know how to get there, or they don't know how to get community service or open a business, or help their individual community group start a community center or a church. All of those things, or a community garden. So this is their way of gaining those resources. And then someone who's willing to become ambassadors or act as connectors between the city's communications and the communities. This one is actually really huge because it was really proven helpful this past year during COVID. We've had 6 cohorts since 2017, and we looked to those 6 cohorts, which we call our Louisville Welcome Academy alumni. And we look to those alumni members to help us to engage with community members, to help us create PSAs, to help us share information that we translated in multiple languages, to be those trusted community partners during a time that everyone was really up in arms and not knowing exactly what to do. And so this was an opportunity for us to really work with those community ambassadors to share those messages around CDC guidelines, around vaccinations, around testing. So they really, really proved to be very, very beneficial. And then the participant profile. So a typical participant, immigrant community leader, again, that has an extensive network in the community and already serves as a connector. So someone who understands their own individual community or in their organization, the different communities that they work with. They are on average have been in Louisville 3 to 5 years. So it's typically not somebody who's just arrived or just been resettled, but someone who's been here and kind of gotten the lay of the land and understands the communities. In addition to being a professional in their field, there are also executives. So we also have executive directors, board members, presidents of community organizations. So as I mentioned before, we try to diversify that because we want them to learn from each other's experiences as well. The decision criteria itself. So we focus again on that leadership building and enhancement of networking information. And of course, it's important for if you're going to be starting something like this and you're looking at an application and trying to figure out who you would want to include, it's important to consider that your current foreign-born or international community and those needs. But we designed this to help address critical issues in our community. And in Louisville, it was really around leadership building that capacity for our community leaders, and really broadening their network and information. So some of the things that we looked at, and these are just a few of them, was leadership experience. How many years did they have? Do they have any? Do they have any community experience, professional experience? What do they do? What's their role? Have they volunteered anywhere? What community, if any, do they have an influence in? We also consider employment because we want to have a mix of different professions. Any nonprofit board participation or anything else that they're bringing to the table so that we're able to really diversify that cohort. At this time, we don't have a weighted numerical assessment currently, but it's an option that we feel that if there was a need due to the high increase in applicants, if we had it, we would utilize it. Right now, we typically receive anywhere from 30 to 40 applications per class, and they're reviewed by a panel, and we end up with a roster of about 25 people. Currently, with COVID-19, as of last year, we modified that to 12. So we, because we're only meeting online due to those health safety restrictions and trying to keep those conversations still robust and having the opportunity and the time to really understand and hear from our panelists, we're forced to reduce that. But the application process is very straightforward. It's an online application. We post that and we market that through our networks, through our newsletter, and anybody who's interested can apply with a clickable link, and it's in the actual online announcement. We use a particular platform for our government. It's called WUFU, but really any Google form or any other source of digital application that you use is absolutely, it's fine. It totally works. In addition to some of those things that I have here from the application process, we also provide, so I mentioned here a letter of acceptance. So in addition to making that decision, notifying them, we have a formal letter of acceptance that comes from our letterhead from the city government, and it is signed by the director, myself, for the Office for Globalization. And that is kind of their, they're able to tell their employer that I was accepted to this and I would like to participate in this. And if the employer needs additional, communication from us, then we also have an employer letter that we can send directly to the employer or to HR to say, these are the dates that this person will be missing for a civic engagement opportunity. And we've never had any issues with employers saying, no, these participants can't participate. They encourage it, in fact. So they give them the time off, or they will give them a different shift. They'll accommodate and make that accommodation for them. So, and as far as the curriculum goes, and I'll go into this a little bit deeper in a little bit, but it is focused on leadership development, city government services, citizenship and civic engagement, volunteerism, community engagement, public safety, and the courts. And that's met over those 5 individual sessions. And then that last session is that ceremony, which that completion ceremony, which is actually very, very important to the entire process. It's really to thank all of the participants who participated and stuck with it and made a commitment to participate and showed up every day. It's also a thank you and appreciation to the guest speakers and the panelists that participated and gave their time to share their knowledge and expertise with our cohort members. And they typically get a completion certificate. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we haven't been able to do anything in person, but the previous cohorts would have this at City Hall, and they would, and the mayor has always joined them. So you can see here, there's a picture of the mayor who will always be there at every graduation and handing out those certificates. So Mayor Fisher is incredibly vested in this as well and supports our work, which again, makes it very, very, makes it much, much better. So agenda and topics. So I mentioned 5 individual topics that we cover over different sessions. The first one, we really want to tackle that leadership development. It's that base day of, we want to work from the premise that most of these leaders that are participating in a class didn't necessarily choose to be leaders. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but for the benefit of their community, they're stepping up to the role. So this is really recognizing that, but that also means they may or may not have some formal leadership training. So we like to start by introducing leadership concepts, skills, community resources, and really creating that spirit of leadership development within the cohort. We, in fact, with COVID-19 having to do everything online, we've even invested in a strengths training course online. So they take the assessment online and then we discuss it and we talk about how it could benefit their work in the community or even in their own profession or personally or within our cohort. So we really try to provide them with that as the base. Then as we move on to session 2, the city government services, this is again an overview of city services. And this has been so critical in our feedback because they always tell us that they didn't know who to go to for certain things. And so they're usually presented with a 10 to 15 minute presentation with the director of housing or the director of economic development, parks and recs, the library, safe and healthy neighborhoods, Office of Equity or the health department, even our volunteer coordinators. So they now have that direct connection. They know the face, they know the name, they know how to get a hold of them, and they know who to go to should their community members need that assistance or have those questions. Session 3 focuses around citizenship and that civic engagement. So it's an overview to citizenship, which, hopefully we're going to dive into a lot more as Biden's citizenship plan moves forward, but also civic engagement and civic responsibility. We talk to Metro Council members, and our Metro Council members are so amazing. They always come in and they always talk about their role, their path to leadership, why they decided to do this, and how important that community member or that participant in our cohort is for their job in making a difference in their community. In fact, we've even had Kentucky state representatives come in and talk about legislature, and we've had Congressman Yarmouth come in and he's talked about his role as well. And so that has always been enriching for them too, because they never really get to that level of, of those council members or the legislature or congressmen, and it's someone who's directly talking to them. The next one, the session 4, it was around volunteerism and community engagement. So we really want to hit high on that diversity and inclusion, the volunteerism and cultural engagement. Again, they are leaders within their own community, but they also need to know how to build that community and how to organize that community. So it's looking at the importance of volunteering and organizing. We invite school boards, we invite PTA and nonprofit groups, the Metro United Way, all of them to help talk about what their organizations do and how they can get involved and how their organizations can help their own particular communities. Lastly, we talk about public safety in the courts. This is also something that was based on feedback that our participants wanted some more information about, and it's an overview of public safety. It includes the chief of police, fire department, the county attorney's office, the county clerk, family court judge, the human relations commissions, youth detention services, and even the emergency services. And more recently, we've also started talking about what do you do? How do you know it's an emergency? How do you know it's a hate crime? How do you report a hate crime? Who do you report to? What information do you gather? All of that type of information is then provided to them by those people that work and are leaders in those specific departments. Let's see. So some of the considerations that we had to think about when putting this together, and that I would urge you to think about as you are interested in putting this together. The first one, funding, of course. So we estimate a budget about $5,000 to $8,000 annually to cover that staff time, the operational costs, any assessments that you decide you might want to purchase, and any of your paid presenters if you wanted to do a workshop that was a paid workshop with them. So you might want to consider that. Now, Louisville Welcome Academy has really no sponsors, and it runs on a very lean budget. And the Office for Globalization uses its own operational budget to fund that academy. But I mean, I can tell you that it can be run with no budget. So if you don't have that, you could do it, absolutely, but it requires some creativity and some in-kind resources. Things to think about as far as scheduling, timing, when to start marketing, announcing applications, start notifying and the announcement of those applicants, when to contact presenters, thinking about the location. If we were going to have this in person, should we have multiple locations because we want to, have them have an experience all over the city, and then attendance. How do you deal with obligations and the full weekday commitment for the program? And that's the in-person. Right now, again, we have pivoted that for our online. We actually meet 2.5 hours, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 week out of the month for 6 months. Presenters availability is also huge. So really hitting them up, as you probably all know, if you've ever done panelists, that contact them, remind them, reach out to them, and making sure that they have it on their agenda. And then lastly, lessons learned. So during COVID, we learned that participants really wanted time to network and learn from each other. So we added a homework component where each of them can provide presentations on what they do and learn about each other. And then we also learned that continuous programming, so after the fact, after the group graduates, it's really important to continue to meet with them, connect with them, expand the topics they may have covered during the academy. And then we're hoping to start a Louisville Welcome Academy Youth, and we want to engage those younger audiences at the high school level and start introducing civic engagement and resources earlier. And so we hope that we can do that in the next cohort at the end of this year, where we're engaging our high schoolers to learn more about the government and about community involvement. And I'm going to go ahead and say thank you. I think I'm about 1 minute short. This is my information. If you ever want to contact me, that's our website. Feel free to call. Feel free to like us on Facebook and follow us on Facebook. We do send out a newsletter every week, and we try to keep up to date on things that are going on. But I'm always happy to answer questions if you need it. Thank you so much. And I am going to stop sharing, I think, if I can. There it is. And I'll stop sharing. Great. And I believe I am going to go ahead and introduce Maureen Smith. And Maureen, I'll let you go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Sabine, and thank you for this opportunity to share. Let me just share my screen, then I'll share a brief presentation about the Welcoming Center. So the Welcoming Center is actually an organization that is very close to my heart. It feels like my second home in Philadelphia, and our mission is really promoting inclusive economic growth through immigrant integration. So the Welcoming Center started from an immigrant's dream and experience. Our founder, Anne O'Callaghan, who came here from Ireland, and she was a physical therapist but could not practice in the state of Pennsylvania, and had to take 3 years to get her license in a time when the therapists were needed. And in the process of that, she also encountered a Chinese woman who spoke almost no English, who was looking for an ESOL class for her son. And this experience made her realize the challenges that immigrants, especially with the limited English-speaking abilities, face when they come to the US. So Anne wanted to promote inclusive growth that includes immigrants in the process, and that's how the Welcoming Center was founded together with her friends in 2003. So we have different programs at the Welcoming Center that are focused on supporting participants. We have the Employment and Training Program, where we have the International Professionals Program, and where we support education professionals that are seeking employment in the US, and also work together with engaging immigrant talent through the city of Philadelphia through the Office of Workforce Development. We also have entrepreneurship and business training, and this is ideally for supporting new and emerging immigrants who want to be entrepreneurs. We also have the global crafts market, where a lot of them have a lot of creative things that they sell through that market. We also have the community engagement program. And in the community engagement program, we have the Immigrant Leadership Institute, the Intercultural Wellness, and the Participatory Advisory Council. So Welcoming Center has staff from different backgrounds and different cultures. So our work is focused on being participant-centered so that we meet the needs of our participants. We work closely with the government agencies and other service providers and other organizations so that we are able to do the work that we do. So as a graduate, I'm a graduate of the second cohort of the Immigrant Leadership Institute, and it's a program that I really want to share about because it's a program that helps immigrants in the integration process. So because we recognize that immigrants face several barriers to civic engagement, whether it's the limited English speaking skills or lack of social connectivity where they don't feel like they're connected to the community, and also misinformation on the meaning of civic engagement. So this is a program that helps them connect to their community and also feel as part of their community. It's a very dynamic program in the sense that it's a program that is driven by the needs of the participants. So every time we have a cohort, we look at the needs of the participants and how best we meet that needs. So it is the participants are the ones who make the decisions, and this impacts their lives through recognizing their skills, their talent, and their cultural value. We believe that immigrants must have a voice in our city, so that they are able to be part of the city and engage also in the developing the solutions to the barriers that they face. So our approach is not predetermining, it is more based on listening to the needs that are there. And this is done through action projects. And action projects are where participants come up with different ways of overcoming barriers that they are facing. They make their own decisions, we guide them in the process, but this gives them a sense of belonging and a sense of knowing that they are able to overcome the challenges that are there. So these action projects are really based on immersion and building inclusion so that they feel like they are part of the city and part of their community. Especially during the pandemic, we've learned a lot, and there are things that we've had to adjust and change because most of all our programs were in person, but we had to move into the virtual platform, and we learned how to be flexible and adjust and respond to the changing needs of our participants, because we realize a lot of things have changed and we also have to change to meet those needs. It's like my CEO, Peter Gonzalez, who's also in this call, he put it in a way of being nimble in a way that we are able to be flexible and change and adjust to the needs that are there. And then also learning how to integrating technology, because now we are online, but we still have our programs going on, and also being present in creating those safe spaces that continue to help our participants remain engaged with each other. And then we also want to continue promoting a process where immigrants feel that emotion of belonging, where they say that they feel like they belong in Philadelphia, they belong in their communities, and also motivated to act on barriers that they experience through the process of integration. We also want to build on collaboration with other organizations and are open to engage to learn more about best practices from each other so that we can be able to support each other in the best way as we support our immigrants and refugees. I would want to invite three participants because I think the best way to hear is to hear from the stories of three amazing participants who are my friends who have been connected to the Welcoming Center so that they can share briefly about their experiences. So the first one I will call on is Vanessa. Then after Vanessa will be Yamiche, Ajayi, and Eric Baragan. They're from different countries, different cultures, but they're all connected to the Welcoming Center. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to see here and to see all of you. My name is Vanessa Cuenca. I'm from Ecuador. I'm a publicist, and I am currently living in Quito, the capital of Ecuador. I was preparing myself to spend my 2020 in the US in order to increase my job opportunities. But the pandemic stopped my plans. I was so disappointed at the beginning of the quarantine, being surrounded by thoughts like, I have to get my dreams away, but I decided to fight the depression. In May 2020, I heard about Let's Talk Philly, a program offered by the Welcoming Center, where the objective was to make you feel comfortable while practicing your speaking skills with people who were learning English as well. At the beginning, I didn't understand how it worked, but I was enthusiastic, taking all the chances to beat my frustration. It has been almost 1 year since I took part in my first circle conversation with immigrants who are living in Philadelphia. I have been a participant and co-facilitator for Let's Talk Philly International Wellness Program, and I got a certificate for being a part of 7th cohort of International Leadership Institute and first cohort, which it did it online, by the way. Now we are starting a new round of Let's Talk Philly, where I will finally be a facilitator, and I'm so proud and feeling confident about myself. I have said we because that is what I feel when I talk about the Welcoming Center. It gives me an experience where I feel my sense of belonging, where my dreams seem closer, where I enjoy talking and learning from others, and where I want to give more of me. Even where I found a place to practice one of my favorite hobbies, dancing. And yes, believe it or not, but I offered my second dance therapy workshop last week. And you know what? All of these emotions were born online. Welcoming Center gives me a chance to meet people who are working on achieving their goals. Where we share our stories, I feel stronger, more motivated, and hopeful. I was looking for a space to develop my speaking abilities, but I was encouraged to be an active leader by the Welcoming Center. Now, the more I try to help others, the more I receive helpful from others. Thank you for letting me share my story, and I'm looking forward to be physically with you. And I think the next story is Yamiche.
Yamiche, you're muted, sorry.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Vanessa. My name is Yamiche Ajayi. Originally, I'm from Nigeria in West Africa. I am a textile artist and designer. I migrated to United States 4 years ago, and I live in Philadelphia since then. I was introduced to the Welcoming Center in 2017 when I was seeking for a job, and most important, to integrate into the Philadelphia communities. I joined the Immigrant Leadership Institute, third cohort, a program for immigrants by Welcoming Center. As a participant, I have a voice as a new immigrant with talent, and showcasing my works at Global Immigrant Craft Markets, which give me a space to show the immigrant community and the Philadelphia as a whole, my talent and my work. And this is part of the Welcoming Center Entrepreneur Project. And also I have a voice about my barrier sharing my barrier during that program gave me confidence to settle in my new community. And as an immigrant also, I was a part of decision making within the program, including immigrants with diverse talents and businesses. And at the end of the program, I have confidence and I was bold to decide to continue my career path as an artist and also to start my creative business in Philadelphia, because Welcoming Center gave me a space without fear that I migrate here with my talent. I can continue with my artwork. I can continue with my creative business. And because I believe in the work of the Welcoming Center for Immigrant communities in Philadelphia, I'm always willing to volunteer for immigrant community in Philadelphia, for other immigrants to find space and also to feel confident to integrate into the community in Philadelphia, and also not to worry about their barriers, because Welcoming Center is always ready to support new immigrants and to integrate them into the community and to give them free from barrier of languages, barrier of seeking jobs, barrier of how will I start my new life. So because of the work of Welcoming Center, I feel good and I feel relaxed. I feel confident to be in Philadelphia and also to be in US. Thank you, Welcoming Center, for giving us immigrants that space, especially from Africa. I'm from Africa and I want to continue my work as an artist, and a Welcoming Center has shaped that for me to be able to continue my work and my creative business. Thank you, and I will introduce my friend, Eric.
Thank you very much, Yamiche. Thank you. Really nice to hear your story. Thanks for everyone to lend us this space for us. My name is Civic Baragan. I am from Mexico City. 4 years ago, I came into this country. My wife was transferred from work and we made the difficult decision to move to the United States. During the first 6 months that I arrived, I was not authorized to work. However, I was in charge of, I was focusing in preparing my resume and starting to look for options where I could work. When I received my permission to work, I began to send resumes to different places, and honestly, I didn't find opportunities in things related with my career. While I was looking for opportunities, I had the chance to hear about the Welcoming Center. For me, it was like an unknown concept. It was something new. So they contact me and invite me to the Immigrant Leadership Institute, where I met Maureen. That was a really great experience. By that time, Maureen was part of the cohort, which was a really amazing experience. I had the opportunity to fix my curriculum, and I noticed that the problem that I had, it was not about English proficiency. It was about understanding culture, the American culture. So while I participated in the program, I was learning about the culture, and somebody told me about a position in the school district program for interpreters. For me, it was not exactly what I was looking because I studied law back in Mexico. However, it was much better than the things that I have seen before. And believe me, I easily sent like over 50 resumes and I wasn't finding anything. So I was about to start. However, while I was studying in the Welcoming Center and I was advancing in the Immigrant Relations Institute, there was another event with another nonprofit, and I was waiting to start in the other job, and I decided to volunteer what the other job was about to resolve. To my surprise, there was a position was open, and I applied into that position, and that's how I start my career. So it was really interesting. I was learning about the culture, I was learning about the city, and I automatically start having opportunities that I wasn't having before. So through the program, I understood culture, the way of life of the United States. And since then, I have not stopped volunteering and to encourage other people to be a part of any kind of program of the Welcoming Center. Actually, I was part of the second cohort and my wife was in the third cohort. Most of all my friends in Pennsylvania and the surroundings, I know it through the Welcoming Center. And it's something that I would like to continue supporting. During the last year, I participate in the English conversation circles. Right now, I am volunteering as well for the Immigrant Leadership Institute. And this kind of programs and this kind of nonprofit, it's something that I think it must need, should exist in every city of the world. It's something that really helps to adapt and encourage and empower people. Right now, I feel more realized, happy, and I feel full of trust. And going back to the Welcoming Center feels like home, like a sanctuary for all those people who wants to fit in a new and strange place. So I returning the word, I believe, to you, Maureen.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Maureen, Yamiche, Vanessa, and Eric for telling us all about the Welcoming Center and sharing your stories about how it has affected your lives. Really appreciate you kind of bringing us home to the individual stories that are helped and impacted by this work. Unfortunately, we are a little over time, so I'm not going to be able to take any Q&A, but I do think that a lot of the questions have been answered by our presenters as we've gone through in the chat. So thank you, speakers, for doing that. Like I said at the beginning, we are recording and you will be provided the recording as well as the slides via email that will also be housed on our website as well. So I just want to wrap up by saying thank you again to Melissa, Sabine, and Maureen, as well as our guest speakers. Thank you all so much. Such an important topic, and thank you for the work that you're doing to really make your communities and communities across the country more inclusive for everyone. Thank you to our presenters and to our attendees who spent their afternoons with us. I hope that you will join us for future webinars. Again, we have these every month and would love for you to join us again sometime. And with that, I will sign off. Everyone please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.